This is Mike Schiano in the queue, where we examine the development and integration of artificial intelligence in business. We feature insights from industry leaders, experts, and thinkers on the impact of AI on organizations and the workforce worldwide. Get ready to think, be challenged, and learn. In the queue. Joining us in the queue today is Diane Weaver, a founder and an organizational transformation expert. She's also the Chief Operating Officer at Baryons. We're so excited to welcome Diane Weaver in the queue. Diane, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Mike. It is a pleasure to be here with you today.
We're thrilled. And our show, we're trying to explore how business leaders are adapting to AI's impact on organizations and the workforce. And it seemed like this was a perfect time to have you on and learn more about what Baryons does and what your thoughts are. There's so much for listeners. And if someone is hearing about you and the company for the first time, how would you describe Baryons and kind of the philosophy behind the company?
Oh, absolutely. Great tee up there. So, Baryons, we believe that managers are flying blind, especially when it comes to team health and engagement. And in an age of AI, which we are in, for better and worse and everything in between, uh, there's simply no reason to not have different kinds of data, different sets of data. We like to call them signals or leading indicators that managers can have access to, so that they're not flying blind, specifically on their team health and engagement metrics.
When did the company start? And were you one of the founders?
I am one of the founders, and so we have a really interesting origin story, and there's four co-founders. So our fearless leader and CEO is Mike Ruska,
Mhm.
and he is the former CEO of a company called Problem Solutions, and he spent his career really studying organizations, organizational theory, organizational change, learning and development, things like that. He's built such smart tech, specifically in areas like the Department of Defense and things like that.
Mm.
So he's been working in with AI for decades, and so has his technical team. My co-founder, Brooks Canavesi, he's our CPO, our Chief Product Officer, and he knows AI inside and out, again, through all the flavors of the evolutions of it. But from a generative AI standpoint, Brooks is such a ninja. It's incredible. And then our CTO, Ryan Krinjek, he is just an outstanding leader. He comes over from AccuWeather, where he was the
Mm.
VP of development. And, he architects such impressive systems from a standpoint of just out of the gate of sustainability ethics. He's really such a unique CTO, actually, because he has as many people skills as technical skills, and I say that in the kindest way possible. I am a serial co-founder. So I've been working in startups and with startup groups, for many years, and it's just really difficult to find people who tick the boxes on both sides.
Mm.
So I'm also a polymath. I am technical and I am non-technical, but I'm also a linguist. I'm fluent in four languages, and I have just a passion for linguistics and semantics. and I know as many computer languages as human languages. And now that, generative AI has disrupted how we code and everything too, it's like, okay, well now we're all vibe coders, right? So
Right.
so even more so. So I love to, I come from a background of just for multi-generational innovators and technologists, and just this ethos of leaving the world a better place than where I found it, is just something that I've always grown up with. So I've spent my career just really focusing in on, how do we make human systems better for the humans.
Hmm.
And I've focused a lot of my career on education, but really focusing across the pre-K to gray, lifelong continuum, for learning and growth and development as a human. And which has been fascinating because it's not just education, of course. Like, we spend less time in classrooms than we do in real life, right?
Yeah.
And not that classroom isn't real life, but you know what I mean, out there in the world. We never stop learning. Humans, the way that we're hardwired is, through learning through mimicry and mirroring. And I think that kind of backbone of understanding how we learn and how we develop is such a great primer, right now in this day and age with generative AI, because nothing will replace the mirroring and mimicry, power of human to human work. That said, in order to fully, take advantage of this moment in time, we all need to augment ourselves as humans with the technology at hand. And that kind of individual transformation and the impact on the overall organization
Hmm.
and creating a flourishing workforce, that is really interesting to me, and that's why I'm here.
Well, I'm glad you're here. You're definitely an amazing achiever of many things, and it sounds like you've put together a powerful team on Baryons. And I like where you focus on the workers. I wrote a book recently, AI is Coming for Your Job, how to survive and thrive. Right. So I'm
Beautiful.
really concerned. I've spent my life working with teams of people that I know are at risk. So I'm really interested in what you all found out, what you noticed in organizations as AI transitions in, whether it's leadership or frontline workers. What are you finding? Are you finding stress, concern, and anxiety? What are some of the things that are keys for you that you're then going to help with through Baryons?
Yes, this is a fantastic question, and it kind of comes back to the company culture. What
Mm,
is a company's culture before AI entered the scene really determines a lot of where the people go from there once
mm,
AI has arrived. And so some of these problems are the cultural problems sometimes are exacerbated by adding AI, right? And if there's not trust at work in the first place, there certainly won't be trust after you add in AI, right?
right.
And
Absolutely.
because it's a big unknown. And so, but if you are operating as a company ethically, and you have a good healthy culture and you add AI into it, then it becomes an accelerator. And the trust factor is really key here. It's really critical. And it's not that it's out of reach for folks who had trust issues before, but it just means that their implementation of AI needs to be more nuanced and it needs to be even more human centered. So we're finding companies kind of all over the board because of that huge like what was the culture before and what was trust like beforehand. And then we're also seeing various industries react to AI taking over tasks or even positions very differently as well. In some industries, it's welcome. In other industries, it's it's really quite threatening, right?
Yes.
So yeah, so it really is such a polarizing thing, but then we have moments like heading into I don't know if I'm allowed to say their name openly, but this is a nonprofit organization
Sure.
that is nationwide, right?
Yes.
And we went to their headquarters and we didn't really know what to expect. I think we might have assumed that they might be AI novices, right? Or resistant in some way. And when we showed up, we were blown away. We were blown away by the openness and adoption of AI within each role across the organization, and that they were able to make it scale. And there were a couple of things that I think the CEO did just brilliantly to make that the case. Number one was that he set up a structure so that it was really focused on outcomes. You could use whatever tools you as an individual or you as a team decided to use as long as you hit those objectives and outcomes,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
So there was autonomy, it was co creation. Nobody was having to make these decisions alone or in a vacuum. They slowed the pace of work down to make time and room for innovation, knowing that this temporary slowdown would mean rapid speed up in the near future, right? Just really innovative, took a really big risk, and he's seeing it really pay off. It's quite impressive.
Diane Weaver's our guest. She is the co founder and chief operating officer at Baryons. Now, I got this from the website, Diane, so keep me honest. Baryons delivers both cutting edge AI solutions and operational excellence. Now, a lot of companies can say that. So give me some specifics now. You just mentioned a nonprofit national company that you went into. So what is the goal when you go into a company? Why do companies like that nonprofit call you and say, come help us?
Yeah, great question. So Baryons number one is a flourishing partner. So when you think about this idea of using an AI as a companion, which a lot of people do, and then you think about how might this help me at work as a flourishing partner. That's where Baryons really enters the scene. So first and foremost, it's your flourishing partner at an individual level. What we are releasing this quarter, and I'll just give a sneak peek of this,
Yeah.
is a check-in, check-out system, which means that that individuals who've established this relationship of trust with their flourishing partner, the Baryons knows the person, understands the person, what are their their goals, not just at work but in life, and really helping people define their own definition of flourishing. This is really critical here because a lot of AI coaches and companions, especially in the workplace, they come in with like just one path for you. And it's
Mm.
just, like reiterating your training course, or whatever that single task is. With Baryons, from the get-go, when you have your first phone call with your Baryon, first of all, it's a phone call. You're speaking with an AI that sounds, it's a voice, right? And it still sounds like an AI. We didn't want it to be too utterly creepy, right? Still sounds like an AI, but it's human enough. It's kind of suspending your disbelief enough that you're starting to build a relationship of trust.
Mm.
Key number two there, why it's voice first, is that and let me just put here, it's native language first. So it's not just voice, it's in your language. And 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 that's also important because as we verbalize different aspects of our work experiences, they number one, we're processing it mentally differently than if we were typing into a chatbot, right? We
Yes.
have to think about our words differently. A lot of, especially with remote work or work where people are really tethered to computers, a lot of that work is not vocal at all, right? And so, unless you're like in a really cool tech
Mhm.
company where they're only doing vibe coding and voice first, anyway, but we could talk about that another time. But but basically, it's just this really special moment of the day where you get to vocalize what you want. What is your intent for the day? And what do you want to accomplish? What do you want to get out of this? Where do you place value? How do you define purpose? What makes you feel like you're flourishing? All right, let's help you get more of that out of your day, right? And so this idea of like they've established this relationship with their flourishing partner, and now they can also just do a real quick check in and check out. We're talking 2 or 3 minutes, right? And that helps people set their intention for the day and then also have a moment of reflection at the end of the day. And then what happens is that the semantic processing that we do for that individual helps the individual see patterns in how often how often was I able to do the things that I set out to do this week. That plays a lot into our overall happiness, right? Just as
Yeah.
humans. And so if I'm able to actually accomplish the things I set out to do, my frustration level is going to look very different than someone who isn't. My stress level and whether I internalize that stress is probably going to be very different than someone who isn't in the same situation, right? And so what happens then is that data is yours. It's yours, the user, right? These are private conversations that you're having. But when your employer purchases baryons for the company to help provide this flourishing experience for the employees, then there's a high level of anonymized data that surfaces that
Ah, yeah.
then feeds into a dashboard where your manager can see, okay, are my teams functioning? Not are they getting all their KPIs? Are they ticking all their to do boxes? But are they talking with their baryon with enthusiasm, or are they having strain in their voices when they do their check in and check out? What's their level of energy, right? Because
Yes. Yeah.
because as AI becomes even more and more pervasive across industries, human energy will become the sought after resource, right? I know it's hard to believe like right now, but we are going to need to see our human energy levels. And these metrics play a big role in seeing burnout early, indicators of burnout, indicators of just circumstances that lead to attrition. And it's all research backed, it's science based, we're patent pending, We have efficacy studies that we're doing with Penn State University. So we're building this the right way, the ethical way. Um, we're training our product and our models, with PERMA, things like PERMA. Are you familiar with the PERMA model? PERMA is basically, it came out of the military, and it's P. I'll just tell you, it's an acronym, right? So
Right.
P stands for positive emotions, E stands for engagement, R stands for relationships, M stands for meaning, and A stands for accomplishment. So when people feel that they have positive emotions happening every day, they're engaged with their peers, they have relationships with other humans within their orbit, they have their own definition of meaning within their life, right? And they feel a sense of accomplishment in that this is foundational to the flourishing research. And Harvard is one of the entities that's like one of the biggest proponents of the flourishing research that's happening right now. But it's
Yeah.
all rooted in this PERMA framework. So different pieces of science like that, are really baked into the experience, which makes it
This
unique.
Diane Weaver's our guest COO at Baryons. So I've got so many questions. We need hours to talk to, but I want to get some quick, and I'm thinking listeners are thinking the same thing. So a company brings Baryons on. They have access to this. The employees, like, is it real structured? Can they call and talk anytime they want, or do they only have the check-in beginning and end of day? Like, how structured is that communication flow? And secondly, do you find that you get people using it when they're frustrated or stressed after a bad day, a bad meeting, right? Or is it more therapeutic and I need to chill out, so I'm going to call and just have a nice conversation? I know there's a lot there, but
Yeah.
how structured is the communication capabilities when somebody brings your tool on?
Well, this is such a great question because the whole idea here and the augmented reality of, being an augmented human in 2026. And, when 2 years from now, when we look back at this will be like child's play, right? But like, but but the whole idea is that, you probably have a few AI tools, and you may even have a couple of AI agents that you've trained, that you're using regularly in your workflows. But to your point, how structured is Baryons specifically? It's really not that structured. It
Hmm.
is quite flexible, because if you need an in the moment support, if you need just in time role playing, if you need to, let's say, you're heading into a big pitch and you have to commute there, right? So you're driving, maybe it's a 40-minute drive, and then you're doing this big presentation, and you want to call your Baryon in your car through Bluetooth and do a hands-free call. And you want to practice your pitch over and over again, you can absolutely do that. If you want to, if you're just really stuck on a really hairy problem at work, or maybe something is just needing more nuance, or it's a difficult conversation for you. For whatever reason, when you go to talk to this person, your throat tightens up, right? Whatever it is, you can call your Baryon and you can talk through it. And your Baryon is trained to help you kind of shift perspective. So whatever perspective you're leading out with, it's going to help you see what you're not seeing, right? It's going to help
Yeah.
you kind of flex that critical thinking muscle more. When you talk to ChatGPT, it's just a like echo chamber of affirmation. When you talk to your Baryon, you are really working your brain in quite a different way because it will challenge you in a positive way, right? It will help you kind of see around corners that you might not be thinking of. And because it's in its real-time semantic processing, it can really pick up on, different stress levels and indicators, which is fascinating.
This is so cool.
Yeah.
Can individuals come to you, or is it only through companies that folks can get access?
Oh, absolutely. If you go to baryons.com, you
Mhm.
can get access to your own baryon right away. In fact, there's a free version of it and there's a paid version of it. It's just $20 a month if you're paying for it. And then, use the free. That's we always say that. We have it there for a reason because we just don't want any, any barriers to access. It's really important, deep work. If people are showing up to do it, we want them to have access to it.
That is amazing. What are there any limits as far as a company? How many employees can they have? Thousands on your system? I would guess so. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. In fact, we're democratizing executive coaching here.
Really?
That's
Yeah.
not the only purpose of Baryons, but that is at the heart of this too, where in previous times when a company is going through major transformation, there's tons of money poured into executive coaching for the C-suite down to the director level, right? But this is finally everyone across the company, no matter how big or how small, everyone across the
This
company
is
can have
awesome.
access. Yeah.
We are going to have you back on again because time goes by too quickly, Diane. But this has been amazing. A lot to think about. So we encourage everybody to visit baryons.com and learn more. And we'll definitely have you on again. Anything you want to leave the audience with quickly?
Oh, I would love to be back.
Yeah.
The tech is changing so quickly. The meaning of work is changing so quickly, So I think the Baryon story, while it's anchored in timeless themes, it's also changing very quickly. So it's all very dynamic and I think it does merit, checking back. So keep an eye out for us. Go to baryons.com, get your own baryon. If you enjoy it, share it with your friends, your family, bring us to your workplace. We would love to be there too.
Thank you so much, Diane. We will definitely stay in touch and have you back in the queue soon.
Thanks, Mike.